But wait, so when Hillary Clinton loses in Iowa, was your perception that she lost because she was a woman? I mean, is that sort of how you kind of reacted to it as a sort of an identity kind of thing?
Not necessarily. I guess I just started to kind of, it made me look, I was trying to stay very neutral, frankly. And I still am trying to stay very neutral, though it gets incredibly difficult. Professionally, I think it's my responsibility to be as neutral as I possibly can be. But I feel I'm getting, I'm being affected as much as anybody's being affected by watching, frankly, the conversations that take place between me and, my mail delivery person or, my kid's school teacher or whatever. Like, you can't go anywhere really without having a conversation about these things right now, which I think is great. I think it's great, frankly, that people are really into it, and that in some weird way, I think it's positive that it's become a conversation just about racism and sexism. It's absolutely reductive and, largely bullshit that that's what it is, but it's also causing honest conversations to happen about racism and sexism that I've never had or ever seen happen in the kind of general public dialogue before. So on one level where I'm kind of frustrated on behalf of both of them, they're being forced to kind of be the spokesperson for their identity, and that it's completely about identity politics. It's also kind of creating this moment that I feel, I've felt from the point of view of somebody who wants to see a Democrat win either way. I felt nervous about, and then excited about, and then nervous about, and excited about. Well,
but back to American Idol.
let me toss this question to you though, Heather, because every poll has shown, almost every poll has shown that Hillary Clinton has an advantage over Barack Obama in the state of Pennsylvania. The numbers vary, but it's been as high, I think, as in the 20 percentile range. Can one assume then that somehow Pennsylvanians are more enlightened about these gender issues because she's doing better than Barack Obama here in the state, or what? I mean, what's going on with that?
I think it's not about gender; it's about the economy. So what's consistently happened for Senator Clinton is that in very large states with strong Democratic, so a lot of Democrats and working class Democrats and people who know what their lives were like during the Clinton administration, know what their life's been like during the Bush administration, have seen how No Child Left Behind has affected their public school classrooms, who have kids in public schools. I think these are the people who, for the most part, are actually putting gender aside and saying, look, what I know is this woman has experience and she has real economic policies that speak to my pocketbook. And, when her husband was in the White House, there were college loans available to my kids. And you know what? That trumps everything. And I think that's what Pennsylvania and Ohio and, and Michigan and Florida are about, is Democrats, working class Democrats, voting on what working class Democrats have always voted on. And I don't think Senator Obama has been speaking to those issues. And that's come
although
out
he's
of the
been
polls.
changing his rhetoric in
He
response.
has for here, yes. So does that mean then that class identity, your sense of yourself as a working class or middle class person, trumps gender or racial identity?
Well, this is good because we have to get into the whole class thing.
The sort of, it's interesting. Actually, right before I came here, I ran into friends who are neighbors who I respect a great deal. They're both, they're professionals and.
Is that why you were late?
No, I saw them while I was waiting for my husband to come home. But
she was
but
drinking
they
margaritas
said,
with her
they have all these Obama
friends.
signs in their yard, and they asked if my son could, play in their yard. I said, of course. And I said, well, where's your daughter going to school next year? Because our kids are kindergarten age, and they're sending her to this very expensive private school. Now, that's fine. I respect their choice to do that. But I think that this is, I really thought this is an Obama voter. People who vote Obama, but and say that they feel all of these strong progressive value connections with him. But when it comes down to their own real lives, it doesn't really matter what's going to happen in public schools because their kid's not in public school anyway. It doesn't really matter whether there are increases in Pell Grants because they can afford to send their kids to college anywhere. I think, the voters who are strongly for Clinton are voters who know that her policies are going to actually affect their lives on an everyday basis. And they don't have the privilege or luxury to, well, if that works out, then that'll be great for those people whose kids are in public school. And if it doesn't, well, that's okay because I can send my kids to a private school. Like, Senator Clinton's policies are good for people who are actually working day to day and trying to send their kids to college. And
yet there's a lot of Obama supporters, and you and I were in a room full of them just the other night, who are for Obama and who clearly aren't people who are going to be able to pay to send their kids to college without a Pell Grant. A lot of black voters, for example, and working class folks in the city.
This was exactly not supposed to become Heather defending
No.
Hillary.
But I'm sort of curious as to how we kind of got it. I mean, hey, you guys started this.
Well,
this
this-
whole
this-
identity, this whole identity question.
you
This
guys
whole,
started
this whole working class, professional class is one thing, but the question is, where does the creative class enter into this discussion? So,
Well, Billie Jean, well, not Billie Jean King's an athlete, but Elton John, just had a concert for Hillary. So I guess if Elton John is a representative of the creative class, then they're with Hillary.
I'm sure he is, yeah. And justifiably so. So, but this is a good topic. This is a nice entree from the whole gender issues through class into some of the real issues that we face day to day.
No, those are real issues too.
No, absolutely. But the difference is that those are issues that have been focused on a lot by the media. And, we've been segmenting through the media the voting population so much that essentially you have to check with your own demographic before you go into the voting booth to find out what you're supposed to do. But what they don't actually enlighten you on are some of the issues that maybe day-to-day people face here. But you kind of walk toward that. I think one of your points on the economy is something that's something that kicks people in the ass every single day, that a lot of people, including you, me, are having discussions that are based on what we're reading from folks who are experts who have no idea where the hell our economy is going.
Can I be a jackass and just take it back a second before we go away from racism and sexism? I'm sorry, I know that you were setting up that question really well, and you did a lot of work on
I'm pretty sure
it.
you're being patronized.
I was marking
I'm no
time,
expert.
frankly, until somebody with brain showed up.
No, but I really, I do think that you're a smart, interesting guy as I think about Chris and Heather. Although gal would be the word I would use for you, sister. So I'm coming back to thinking about racism and sexism and how that conversation is being driven on a national level, and feeling like I would love to hear more from you guys and talk more about how that has the potential for change or is actually significant or might change where we are. I mean, one of the things that I was remembering for some random reason when you were telling your story was being in an English lit class in college. Not that I wasn't paying attention to your story, of course. In a women's lit class.
You can make me your permanent co-host.
She can replace me.
No, never. I remember, we're in a women's lit class and we're reading all this stuff, and then there's that guy who goes, or that woman, frankly, more often, who goes, "What's the big deal? We're all equal now. There's no problem." I mean, there was this, and to me, it was like, "Are you serious?"
Well, since the
But
Equal Rights Amendment passed, sure.
Okay, so long story short, as I'm never able to do really, was that there's still a lot of people who think that sexism is a done issue. It's done, it's wrapped up, gone. Probably there's people who even lie to themselves enough to think that racism is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And I think if nothing else, then right now we're being shown that's absolutely not the case.
And
Whether
we
it's
don't
because
even
of the
talk about
coverage
class.
that either is getting or the way that they're deconstructed, or if you do this, it's because you're a woman. Oh no, but then when she did this, it was manipulative. Oh, but she meant to do, what the, you can't be weak enough to cry, but manipulative to cry, and you can't be all those things. But my point just kind of being that I think it's so much clearer because these two people have risen to the level of about to break the glass ceiling and really have broken a glass ceiling by becoming the top two nominees for our party. A lot of people are having to examine what they really think, and I think a lot of things are coming out of a lot of people's mouths that you've run into.
Yeah, and it is shocking. I mean, I think it's shocking how overt it is, and yet on the other hand, to both of your questions around, how is it really playing out? I agree that I think that the media is talking about gender and race in these big frames, but they aren't talking about the issues with the nature of them.
Yeah.
So, I think part of what's been incredibly complicated is watching how this dynamic creates this unfortunate situation, especially for women of color, who are being asked, oh, well, you need to decide whether your gender or your race is more, either more important or the aspect of yourself you've been more discriminated against. And this is an asinine argument, an asinine sort of situation to put anyone in. But I think part of what's not being talked about, and this does go actually to that moment we had at the Hill House of, where I was trying to talk about, here are some of Senator Clinton's policies that actually deal with poverty, things she's done in the past that affect very low-income parents, and things she wants to do moving forward. And to a certain extent, that gets lost because so much of this has become about gender and race. And within each of those, we have things like poverty, lack of education, lack of opportunity. When we hear this stuff about Senator Clinton, and we're being told that some of this is bringing up stuff around gender or sexism, but we're not hearing things like, still in this country, the number 2 killer of women is domestic violence. We live in a country where the first most likely thing to kill Mary or I is heart disease. The second most likely thing to kill us is our husbands. I mean, that's disgusting and it's sick. And if the second most likely thing to kill you was Mary, like, oh my God, the country would be in uproar, and we'd have all the women on medication, and we'd have programs up the wazoo, and I think that.
Well, and the cancer studies as well. The fact that the majority of cancer studies done since the beginning of medical testing, UPMC, have all been on men. Very few on women. Or even that the
number 1 killer of women is heart disease. Most people find that to be news to them. They think, oh no, men die of heart attacks, not women. So, I mean, the fact that women's health is not really an issue, the fact that we are still making less here in Pennsylvania, women managers are making 58 cents for the dollar. I mean, that's pathetic. And women with graduate degrees are making 71 cents per dollar. I mean, these are the big issues around gender in this country that we aren't talking about.
Well, let me just say a few things. First of all, the number 2 factor most likely to kill me is Mary Shalom, as a matter of fact.
Depending on the next thing that comes out.
Okay, move up to number 1.
I mean,